Hey everyone, I have the luxury of being with Rick and Tim, huge parts of this, one of my favorite companies now in the space economy. As you guys are aware, I am a sucker for early secular growth themes, and a lot of people, it's all about the fourth industrial revolution, AI, AI, AI. Guess what's the next frontier? The fifth industrial revolution, that's the space economy. So I geeked out today when you guys walked me through everything you're doing, and I think there's kind of one specific company in mind, SpaceX, has all the spotlight and what the space economy is, but really there's a lot of great players in there that is niches within that full ecosystem. So I wanted to kind of talk to you first about this, Rick, on what is the competitive advantage on Starfighter, because I heard a lot about it today and I'll have some follow-up questions after you tell me your brief answer about that.
Sure. Well, let me first of all preface it by saying we do not compete with SpaceX, and that's probably the unique part. What Elon has is amazing. Number one, I'm one of his biggest fans, but we don't really compete with what he does. He's doing a total different orbits, different. Well, not necessarily all, but the LEO and everything he's doing does is much bigger. We're the little guys, and we have a totally different niche than what SpaceX does, and I think that's something that makes us unique in the fact that we can get this relatively small payload into orbit at a price that's very competitive relative to anyone else that's launching anything of that nature. And also we become more utilitarian for smaller companies that are looking to get payload in orbit.
So I hear launch agility. That's essentially what you guys have. That's exactly what, so everyone talks about like SpaceX, let's just say, let's go from the other names that are public as well. We have the AST Space Mobile, people reference them as American Tower of Space, Rocket Lab, the FedEx of space. After today, I'm very confident calling you guys the Uber of space because of the launch agility. I hear a lot of new innovations coming down the pipeline that helps illustrate the launch agility narrative that you guys are trying to push towards. Hoping you can tell me more about that.
I got a good term. I think we're the Bitcoin of small sat.
Ooh, I like that. A little crypto spice in the space economy. I'm here for it.
So for agility, there's a couple things with us. One, we, like Rick said, we have high cadence. We could technically fly every day, if not twice a day. If everything lined up, which will not happen, but on paper we could, because one, our first stage is an aircraft, a high performance aircraft, but we can fly every day on several missions a day. Number two, our agility is in when we get out over sea is the orbits we can fly. So roughly here from the Space Center, people could go 120 degrees. We can go about 180 degrees. So in the azimuth of how you can launch. And the other thing too is, no one gives tailored orbits to very small payloads. They're secondary payloads on bigger rockets. We can give a custom ride to where people want to go. If they need to be at 150 miles, if they need to be at 200 miles, if they need to be at this inclination or that inclination, we can give a tailored ride to them, just like Uber.
Interesting. No, so I think a lot of people in the early days of AI, they think about NVIDIA. One of the biggest secondary moats of NVIDIA is that virtual environment that they were able to create to simulate the algorithms from AI. Way more efficiency, way more cost effective. You guys are kind of doing the same thing in the space economy, that virtual laboratory.
Yeah, well, it's not virtual, it's in real life. So one of the problems with big space is that if you launch a $400 million satellite, $150 million satellite, is very risky to put new parts on there because all the old parts work and they have to last for 10 to 20 years in space. On us, they could fly and test out, oh, we have a new transponder. Oh, we have a new avionics. Oh, we have new software. They can fly on us just that unit or component, whether it's just on the F-104 or on like Star Launch 1 and test that component. So yes, and going back to this isn't Lockheed aircraft, but going back to the old days of Lockheed and Skunk Works, it was build a little, test a little, fly a little. And that gets you so where when you integrate all those parts, they work. So we're risk reduction for a lot of other players.
And not even just satellites. I mean, just reduction for the major players for that matter.
So would you say that, I know you guys highlighted a lot about supersonic, and I think that's, a lot of people when they hear supersonic, it's like, oh, that's a sci-fi dream, but after today, it's actually a near-term reality. I actually think that you guys are creating your own total addressable market now in supersonic. So how do you guys go about valuing yourself when you're creating the market in itself alone? Like that's pretty tricky balance.
It's hard because oftentimes we can sole source on a contract because we're the only ones that can fly Mach 2. So Rick and I, how many conversations have we had where we have to Goldilocks. We can't overprice and we can't underprice. And so sometimes it's hard when you're the only person to set that value.
I mean, it sounds like an angel devil situation.
It
It
is.
is. You're caught between a rock and a hard place on a lot of things. So.
Yeah. So when you guys have those difficult conversations, have they evolved in 2025? Because I think the industry has evolved drastically in the past year alone.
I think so, and I think, and we're still the small set player. There still is not a small set player with a first stage that's reusable. You have it for the large players, but not for the small guys. So we're still the only one out there. A lot of guys have some interesting things on the drawing board, but they're 7 to 10 years away, and not to mention how many $100 million to make that happen. And that's why I've said the whole time we're steps to space that Tim's been talking about, hypersonic, and then launch. And we're not draining our funds or our investors' funds to do this.
So I could tell, and Rick will tell you about last May, I said, oh my God, they're finally listening, because I was going to the Pentagon and to conferences, and several times I'd be in a room and I would be the only person capable, the only company capable of going Mach 2 the next day. And near the end of that time, I'd say, listen, I'm the only one who can go Mach 2 tomorrow. And then finally last May, everything started to come together, especially for governmental contracts in the Pentagon, that the need for supersonic.
So, I mean, I don't know, you guys can tell me the catalyst of what occurred last summer, but I think it's just Elon had the bigger microphone, now people are listening. So it's almost like a situation where it's a high tide resolve boats for everyone in that space.
That's true for the commercial side, but in the defense side, I think it was China and Russia. The United States had to be competitive. So,
I mean, that's how those kind of arms races fuels innovation in a way. Like it did help. But I mean, I want to hear about your point, because you've been here for decades. However, the company had a massive catalytic event a couple years ago that made you guys pivot towards something that maybe drastically improved your TAM. I was hoping you could talk to me about what occurred in 2022 that led you to that pivot.
Actually, we were confronted with an opportunity to basically evolve our program with Fortuna. Fortuna came in and said, we like the concept, we think this makes total sense, and we like to put some money into the program and try to make this into a doable space launch company. And that's why we were headed, but we would have been a lot longer getting there. So it evolved our program very quickly, and they said, hey, we can help raise the funds to get us into this niche even faster. And that's what's happened. So now since 2022, when we first started trying on these new shoes, we really started accelerating. And hence the new platform that we're coming up with, which will even carry bigger payloads, but yet still in our niche of the small payload allocation into low Earth orbit. So a lot of opportunity.
And Rick had added a lot of intrinsic strategic ideas to the company. One, we do not sign exclusive agreements with anybody. So as long as it meets the national security and their check clears, Rick will let them fly. So we're non-exclusive, which is a big deal. We are also a research and development, testing and engineering company where we test, and we get a good amount of business for that. One of the reasons we'll be in the black is because of the R&D. So Rick added some intrinsic values about not being exclusive, being an R&D company, and also be a launch company. But some people are just 100% launch, and I don't want to say they fall in love with their launch business to the detriment of some other opportunities.
I mean, so some of my favorite characteristics of these early sector growth themes is picks and shovels. It sounds like you guys are turning into that picks and shovels of this whole space economy through the R&D angle.
So funny you should say that. In my standard speech, I don't use picks and shovels. I use Levi jeans and shovels. And that's Stanford and Levi, and who made the money in the California Gold Rush?
Picks and shovels.
Exactly.
Exactly.
A lot of times, never the first movers. It's like the highest floor, but you capitalize on the whole thematic at the same time. I also wanted, I think one of my favorite characteristics of early disruptors is secondary moats. We talk about, you can say SpaceX secondary moat is just Elon himself. You have Rocket Lab with New Zealand, but we're at the Kennedy Space Center. I think that's a massive secondary moat for what you guys are able to offer that nobody else can replicate on the pricing of it. So hoping you can talk to me more about that.
Well, I think you're right. I mean, that's the uniqueness we have. We have first of all, these airplanes don't operate well at a small community airport. They're too fast, and they don't mesh well with Cessnas. So. And so coming out here was a natural. They operated the F-104's out of with NASA up until the late 90s. It was very, very opportunistic for us to be able to get the opportunity to operate off of a runway that was built for these type of aircraft, and have airspace that we could actually do the testing that we need to do using the NASA ranges and what have you, as well as the Air Force ranges that are just off the coast here. This was designed for not just rocket launch, but for operations like us. So the opportunity is huge. We're taking advantage, and I think that is something that's going to be very reflected well with our progress as we evolve into this new air launch program.
And it saves us a ton of money being on a spaceport because there's so many things we don't have to do. We just have to pick up the phone. We need liquid oxygen. We just pick up the phone. We need explosives disposed of. We just pick up the phone. We need a space certified crane. We just pick up the phone. And I can't imagine if we were a small business somewhere else where we can't just pick up the phone and get things here.
Well, I think you're highlighting, like, I think space industry is probably one of the highest barriers of entry, where you can't really just like, oh, start a company and like within a couple of years, I'm gonna go and do something in space. It's not possible. And I think you and I were talking about something earlier that was so interesting on another moat that you guys have is dirty air. That's something you guys have, this environment where it's actual real world environment. You can see what works, what doesn't. Where competitors who maybe try to mimic your process, it's happening in a totally different stage where it's not an actual environment where it's dirty air. It's actually clean air where you don't know what's going to happen come launch time.
So we're not calling it dirty air. We're calling it wind tunnel in the sky. So that's our marketing thing. It's wind tunnel in the sky. And for those who don't know, you cannot get time on a supersonic or hypersonic wind tunnel. It's a year, 18 months, and then you have to buy the whole week. So it's very expensive. But we can fly under wing and go Mach 2 and get you real world air. And why we call it dirty air versus clean air. In a wind tunnel, you only get 30 seconds, and it's extremely consistent air, same temperature, same pressure, same speed. Whereas when we fly, there's temperature fluctuations, there's humidity, there's even bugs. And
real world.
Real world, and so the customers truly like that.
Listen, my time is about wrapping up. I have one final question, and I think it's one of those where I think everyone's assuming in a Trump-led presidency, he's going to stamp American with every circular growth rate, American AI, American quantum, American space. Has the bureaucracy drastically changed in this Trump-led presidency where you can now sprint where before you're wearing ankle braces and you can only go as fast as you can? Like, possible.
I for one, without naming politics, am happier than I can ever imagine. I mean, this is what this country needs, and this is what we need with our business for the space program.
So right at the change of the administration, 17 rules were changed, and they were changed in our favor and SpaceX's favor. But the thing that thrilled me most about, we agreed with all the 17 rule changes, but at the very bottom it said, and more to follow. So we were very happy about the path.
Listen, I got to end on a pun. It sounds like they left you on the hanger.
Yeah.
It's a great time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You bet.
Great meeting you guys.
Thank you.
Super excited about the future.